from a broad, eagle-eyed perspective, what is a good attitude to take towards life at large? Meaning, in the broadest possible sense, how might I approach the question of my life, the problem of human life in general, and as it concerns my individual case? To offer a few quips which we can then try to unpack, it could be said that a fruitful approach is to view life as an experiment that ends with an experience. An experiment such as is predicated on the premise that the highest hypothesis that we can form is true or might be true. What does that mean? So we say that we start out life with no idea of what's going on. Obviously, as infants, as little children, what is life? Who am I? How might my experience eventually unfold? We say that we might imagine, in connection with a term such as world, whatever we like, a globe, a map, lots of people in a city, but the actual concrete reality is that I experience everything in an individual way. I cannot step outside of my experience. And taking I here in the widest sense, I can step outside of, say, being awake by falling asleep. There's all kinds of substances that people take to try to modify their experience. But in the broadest possible way, I'm just me, and there's no getting around that. If I was, say, a mouse or a monkey, I couldn't then stop being a mouse or a monkey for a moment. We see that that's clear. You can't tell a monkey, take a pause, don't be a monkey for a second. No, the monkey's always the monkey, and I'm always me. We get the idea. So we don't know how our experience will unfold, what will happen, what life is like. So one approach then here is to say that right now, my life is an experiment. It could go any number of ways. We say that by considering the past and considering the present and all the people in it, that there are innumerable roads, innumerable destinies. There are people that go down. There's people that go up. There's people that tragically, goodness forbid, end their life in murder, suicides. There's people that end their life impoverished, addicted, with nobody there for them, without family, without friends, without a single supportive person in their life. Other people are beloved. Other people are, or can pass away surrounded by family and friends into old age, having enjoyed a lifetime of good physical and mental health. Other people, some people are powerless. Some people have power. Some people are wealthy. Some people are poor. Some people are moral. Some people are amoral. Excuse me, and so on. There's so many different paths of life. There's so many things that can happen. So at first, my life is an experiment. I don't know what will happen. But what I can then, or the attitude that I can then take, is that it's an experiment right now, such as can end in an experience. And by that would be meant what life is really actually like. So let's take a negative example just to get the point. Let's say that right now I'm starting out in life, right, and I have these options in front of me, and I say, you know what, let me run the experiment of becoming affiliated with, say, criminally minded individuals. Let me run the experiment of using and abusing all kinds of substances that I can get my hands on. Let me run the experiment of not respecting the rights of others and assaulting and robbing and stealing other people, and people's property and such. Let me run the experiment of not minding my education whatsoever. Let me run the experiment of not minding my word whatsoever, becoming a liar, lying left and right as it suits me. Let me run these experiments. What then will happen? Well, those experiments will turn into experiences. An experience of a wretched, degenerated life. That is the ultimate tragedy. Unless I turn things around, I hit rock bottom, I start going back up. But if not, if I sink ever deeper into my self-centered selfishness, into my untutored animality, that will be my life. That will be my experience. Experiments that turned into an experience. So we don't want that. So then what kind of experiment do we want to run? So the second part there was before mentioned. Take the highest hypothesis that I can at any time envisage, meaning wrap my mind around, and run the experiment based on that hypothesis. Assume that it is tentatively true. What does that mean concretely? Concretely, say that instead of running my experiment of life based on the premise that life is pointless, that there is no purpose to my existence, that there is nothing worthwhile that I can possibly accomplish as a person, as a member of the human race, as an individual, that any latent potentialities that I may have are good for nothing, and potentiating them, fleshing them out, will not benefit me nor anybody else. That I am really nothing at all other than simply a chance constellation of tiny little particles that somehow, through chance circumstances, happen to get here, that I will eat and drink and sleep for hopefully 120 years, and then I will dissipate, and all those particles will go their separate ways, and my life will be for naught, and the human race will perish eventually, and so will the entire universe, and that'll be that. And there's nothing really to do, and there's nothing really to pursue, and there's no higher values that can be instantiated and lived out. All forms of love are transient, and consequently, essentially, nothing but worthless titillations. Right? There's no such thing as truth. Whether or not that's true is a different question, but that's what I want to say. There's no such thing. It's all subjective. Right? There's no way to pursue the truth. There's no way to conform my individual mind to truth. There's no way to break and mold myself in relation to reality. There's no point in working on my character. There's no point in facing my flaws and not running from myself, in striving to become the individual that I could in principle be. That is one hypothesis, or a series of hypotheses, or we could class them as one kind of just hypothesis of pessimism, quote unquote, or nihilism, or something like that. Another hypothesis, or another series of hypotheses, would be the precise converse of any and all of the aforementioned. I don't know the ultimate mysteries of existence. I don't know what or who I am on the deepest depths, but I see that it is possible to, excuse me, to improve the quality of my experience. I see that my efforts are ultimately rewarded if they are sincere, if they are aimed at inner edification and elevation and education, the cultivation of my mind, the improvement of my character. I see that I can become what it is possible for me to be as a human being and as an individual. I see that purpose, final ends permeate the entirety of the extent far as I can tell. I see that I cannot rule out that the highest values that humans can conceive of, such as truth, such as goodness, such as beauty, I cannot rule out that they are atemporal, that they are not purely finite and transient. I cannot rule out that particular individuals can live them out, can elevate themselves above the tempests of time, right? The world of nature and necessity, of brute animality and alienation and rank finitude. disagreements with, fundamental disagreements, fundamentally being at odds with any and all other persons. I can't rule that out, that it is possible to be better than that. In fact, I see that it certainly is possible to be better than that. I see that our highest hopes can perhaps stand a chance of realization. I see that all real desires are in reference to real objects. For example, the fact that I get hungry is because there's such a thing as food. The fact that I get thirsty is because there's such a thing as liquid. That I want to breathe, it's because there's such a thing as oxygen, even if not in the moment, in principle. So the fact that my heart longs for happiness, that I'm looking for happiness and goodness and peace wherever I can find it. Maybe it's in that childhood memory. Maybe it's on the side of the road in that little wooded area that I pass. Maybe it's in a different country. Maybe it's in some online corner, in some nice video that I'll watch, some nice article, some new music that I'll listen to, a nice park, right? I'm always searching for happiness. I'm always searching for bits and pieces of joy and well-being. Maybe those are real desires. Maybe it is possible to, in principle, consummate them. Maybe there's some object that would satisfy them, as with any of the aforementioned examples: hunger, food, thirst, liquid, and such. So that is a different hypothesis, or series of hypotheses. And by taking these hypotheses, the highest hypotheses that we can at a given time kind of form, obviously keep going higher as we see things more, as things are clarified. But at any given point, whatever we can clarify for ourselves, we take those hypotheses. They're not confirmed facts for us yet. They're not yet experience. They're possibilities. It may be, maybe not. Maybe the aforementioned nihilistic worldview is more sound, is so. Maybe that's what I'll find at the end of the road. Right? But as a hypothesis, I say no. Let me take those higher hypotheses. Let me make them the axioms vis-a-vis which I shall run the experiment of my life. Let me live as if all of that, those higher hypotheses, were so. Let me act as if they were so. Let me treat other people as if they were so, as if other people have value and such. Let me treat myself as if a higher hypothesis was so, that I have value. Let me approach existence and life as if the higher hypotheses were so, that life might have a purpose and a point and might have non-temporal value. And then let me see what experience will unfold. It's an experiment in relation to the highest hypotheses, and then let me see what experience will happen. How my life, every moment of it, will eventually be. And that's the fun of it. We don't know for sure. Maybe the highest hypotheses are bogus, and we will be left high and dry, having pursued the highest all our life. But again, that is life. That's the fun of it, that uncertainty. We don't know, but we then will have the consolation one way or another that we shot our shot. And at least then there's a chance of something good happening. If we take the lowest hypotheses, some of which were mentioned, so much more, so many more, then of course there's no shot of success. If I run the experiment of my life based on the lowest ideas, the lowest hypotheses that I can surmise, failure is guaranteed. And if I do the converse, then success, while not guaranteed, is at least an option. So it's worth considering. Thank you for listening.